What is poppin', people? You got Jay Bear here, bringing you all Shuckle Premier League Season 4 draft notes, the series where I break down every single matchup, both the results and predictions as we go through this season. And it is an almost any ability season for those of you who are new. I'm Jay Bear. I've been doing analyst work for the Shuckle Premier League for this will be my second season. And yeah, it's been a blast so far, and I'm here today to take you through the results of week 2 and then break down the matchups for week 3, which is crazy that like week 3 is the halfway point in the regular season because it is a small league. It is quite short. But while we are here, I just ask that you leave a like and subscribe. I've been having a lot of fun doing these, and it would support me a lot if you go ahead and do that and leave a comment as well. I really enjoy chatting with everyone who takes the time to watch these videos. But this will serve as your spoiler warning. Just a quick warning to those of you who may not have seen the week 2 games, because I'm actually going to reveal the results in 3, 2, 1, and there they are. So we had 4 excellent games to get to. This has been a season of 3-0s and 2-0s. I don't think there's been any other results. And we actually went 2-2 in our pick'ems this week, moving us to 5-3. As a reminder, we have that 16-8 goal, so it's going to be tough from here on out. But I'm going to be happy if we're even able to go like 15, and like yeah, we're going to be able to do that, I hope. And it'll be an interesting season to see if we can actually carry that out with such a small margin. But going forward, let's recap these games. Our first one, we saw Iron Buffin versus Shuckle King, and this was another very solid game. I feel like we've seen so many really good games, and the highlights for me from this game would be 1, Shuckle's Incineroar. I wish it popped. It was one of the coolest draft sets I've seen, trying to make use of Steam Engine and Weakness Policy to beat up on like a Swampert flip turn with Power Trip that would get super powerful, Earthquake coverage as well, and then Overheat with Weakness Policy for a fluffy Galarian Weezing to be able to just nuke that thing, which I think was all very, very creative, even if it didn't end up popping. But Boffin's Garchomp being super key here in weakening Shuckle's team, especially with Crunch for the Goldengo that had the Earth Eater so that it couldn't be damaged by those hazards, or it couldn't be damaged by the Garchomp's Earthquake, but having the Crunch, very, very thoughtful prep. And then I really liked the AV Swampert as well, just sponging hits, regenerating, and being such a nuisance for Shuckle to deal with. And Boffin was able to pretty cleanly take that one 3-0. I don't feel like there was any points in the game where I thought that Shuckle was like really exerting much pressure too late into the game. I think he had a very good like turn with killing the Cornerstone Ogerpon with Regieleki's Refrigerated Explosion, but even then, that was like a 1-for-1 trade, and I don't think that it necessarily was like a game-winning one. Up next, we saw Sebad versus Pokeim, and oh my god, the Victory Bell show. I've been sleeping on Victory Bell. +2 Sucker Punch Okoing Iron Moth, absolutely bonkers, but also Copper Raja, that Pokemon was super strong. Wow. I mean, like, Joey didn't really have a real steel resist, and Sebad was really able to leverage that. I wish like there was like a Trick Room element or something to the team to really go home with that Copper Raja, but wow, it was very, very successful here with the just like being able to click Heavy Slam into Joey's a very light team outside of like Volcanion, but I wasn't able to, you know, really make the impact there. I really like the Sash Terrakion, worked out well. Double Kick was a cool tech that didn't quite hit, but the Victory Bell, man, like it was just victorious. And Joey was able to move to 2-0. Our third game, Swave versus Callum, and this was another quite solid game. I thought that Ting Lu was going to be near impossible to break when I saw how little damage things were taking, but then ultimately Thundurus was able to just nuke it with the Life Orb, Sheer Force, Focus Blast, did absolute crazy numbers, and also being able to pick off the Iron Hands on a probable over prediction from Callum, just not faking it out when it was very, very low with the Refrigerate fake out. It would have been a clean KO, but just being able to pick that off and then preventing Salamence from setting up Swave was able to do, just keeping him honest with the Archaludon, ultimately able to take him up to that 2-0 record, but not without some trouble from the Cinderace. And then our last game, Nexus versus Liv, and this was the Enamorous Therian show. That one was absolutely perfect here. It was able to, early in the game, KO Ursaluna, and then later in the game, rattle off kills into like Skarmory and Azelf and a couple more Pokemon, so that the Great Tusk could close it out into the Qianpao. And that was what Liv needed to play for. The thick, fat Great Tusk, ultimately, that was what thick, fat was for. So she did actually switch up the Great Tusk's ability going forward. So she didn't need to worry about like thick, fat anymore. But it was a very, very important bring for that matchup. Highlight of that game for me was Skarmory just dying to a resisted hit, Moonblast. Although it was a critical hit, it was still just crazy the damage that Life Orb and Sheer Force does. Like, I feel like we saw it a couple of times on those 2 Therian Pokemon, but yeah, Life Orb, Sheer Force, who knew? Very, very broken combination. And yeah, Liv was able to power to 1-1, drop Nexus to 1-1, but I'm sure he will be able to rebound as well. His team is so threatening with that very, very powerful Qianpao. And Nexus was also not without making some transactions here. I believe they went into effect this week, yeah. But very, very solid game from Liv with that Enamorous. But now we can go ahead and look at our matchups for the week, starting with Shuckle King versus Swave. And this is a very, very good matchup for this Wellspring Ogerpon. Just the water plus grass, obviously. Like, Iron Treads has water absorb. Our Chaladon's very, very bulky, and I believe the Fire Pond has the Desolate Land. Yeah, but still, I feel like there's things that the Ogerpon can do to get around it. I feel like you're just going to be Primordial C here and just start trying to whack things. And, you know, you'll have a low kick for Arch. It's not perfect, but it's not bad either. Other highlight Pokemon in this matchup for me are like Galarian Zapdos. I think looks really, really crazy with Sword of Ruin here potentially. Thundurus obviously is a stabs resist, but I feel like the Galarian Zapdos should be able to output enough damage to get through that. And then potentially something like a defensive Golden Go is one of the better checks to a Iron Boulder here. I don't necessarily know if you can get offensive Goldie going with the potency of like a Manaphy here, but I think the defensive application to the gold is very important. But I wanted to very much highlight this Ogerpon Wellspring. And then on Swave's side, I think the Manaphy is very, very key here. It serves key defensive roles here. I think it's going to be very important that it is Motor Drive to shut down any potential Hadron Engine shenanigans from Golden Go, as well as anything that Regieleki may want to do, while still being able to output good damage with its stab combination. Well, not stab combination, but its stab water moves, and then like U-turn to do real damage to Ogerpon Wellspring, or if like Cacturn wants to come, and you saw like an Ice Beam for Dragalge, and you're in a pretty good spot. You can even be like Tail Glow, Water, Ice, U-turn, and I think that's a fine set here. But ultimately, I think Swave has a couple of different options. The Fire Pond here is pretty playable. The Ogerpons kind of switch into each other with their like primal abilities. It's almost like it's a Groudon versus Kyogre matchup, but it's not. It's Ogerpon versus Ogerpon. Treads, very, very important here if it wants to go Water Absorb or Levitate. Either being pretty good into Mamoswine or pretty good into Ogerpon. Pretty applicable there regardless. Thundurus, absolutely crazy. The ground's Mamoswine, that's always like liable to get knotted or focus blasted or something, and then we just go absolutely ham with that thing. And of course, Arch. I feel like this could be a game where you try to swift swim with your Arch. It could be a bit annoying, like with your own Ogerpon, but given the fact that it's probably your best Ogerpon answer, and that thing's Primordial Seeing, it's a pretty reliable scenario for you to be in the rain, or you're able to reset it with your Fire Pond. So I really like Manaphy here for all of those reasons. Well, I like Swave's matchup, not just the Manaphy. For all of those reasons, I am going to pick Swave here as our first winner in the third week. Our next matchup, Sebad versus Iron Buffin. Two longtime friends. I know these guys have gone way back, and I don't know how much they played each other in Draft League or what like their record into each other is. I'm sure they'll probably talk about it in their videos, but look at Iron Moth, man. This is an absolutely bonkers Moth matchup. You have Dazzling Gleam for the Garchomp. You have Energy Ball for the Swampert. You have Fire Move for damn near the rest of the team. You have like Sludge Wave for Entei, but being quad resistant to that thing is either Pixelate E-Speed or just neutral to normal type Pixelate or normal type E-Speed. I think is pretty solid for you here, and it's also the fastest thing. Well, tied in this matchup for Sebad, because it's faster than, or it ties Ogerpon and Espeon. Is faster than the rest of the team. Very volatile if you do want to go for that, because I imagine all those Pokemon just kind of OHKO each other. So I don't necessarily know if that's something that I would want to risk personally, but seems pretty good. Jolteon, I think, also is pretty interesting. I feel like these two can put pressure on the ground types for each other. Just like a Refrigerate, Jolteon looks pretty solid here. While Swampert can probably come in on that guy for a while, Iron Leaves and Leavanny could serve to be annoying for that. I think that Hisuian Samurott also plays a nice role here with potentially getting up the hazards. No real way to block Galarian Weezing Defog here, but I think it's pretty good for Sebad in doing all of that. And then on Boff's side, Sebad has no Cudgel resist pretty much, right? Like his fighting type, Infernape, neutral. Steel type, Corviknight, neutral. And then Probopass. Probopass technically exists, but like liable to get superpower. Quagsire is liable to get whipped or something like that. And yeah, Boff's really able to, I think, leverage this Ogerpon and I think just be able to get it in. There's only one thing faster, it's Jolteon. And while I don't necessarily hate the Jolteon counterplay, I don't like Regen Pert, right, can just come in on it every time actually, and you just flip turn out and potentially get the Ogerpon back in and just do damage. I feel like that's a very hard line for Sebad to stop. Looking at what goes into this matchup, there's tons of ways to get this Ogerpon in between Zapdos and Swampert. And I think that like maybe even Cobalion can be pretty reliable at getting this Ogerpon in. Great punishes for the things that might be an intermediate, like early stopgap, like Corviknight. You have Zapdos for, and Entei for, or like Petrarunt, because you're not making contact. So Fluffy, you get around that and you can just do Rocky Payload, and that's one of the ways that you can probably get through Petrarunt with a physical attacker. Still not the best, but like you have earlier responses to Petrarunt in like Crawdont can potentially do damage. Rotom, it's a bit volatile, right, between like the two ghosts, but I think that there's a lot of things that Buffin can do here. So I am actually going to lean Buffin in this matchup, taking home the dub. Our third matchup, we see Nexus versus Callum, and I really like Nexus Ursaluna here. I just think that like a bulk up like a Vessel set can be really solid here, or just like Assault Vest. Either way, pretty good answer to a lot of the special offense that Callum may be wanting to do, and then like the stabs look pretty good. You have to be mindful of like Earth Eater hands, or I think he switched to Levitate by now actually. Levitate Iron Hands. Yeah. And then like Porygon probably can like take your damage, but I feel like this thing does still very respectable damage into a lot of this team with just like the stabs, and I think it's very potent here. And then obviously Qian Pao, incredible every way that you slice it. Hands is possibly a check. I don't know if it like guaranteed is like doing enough, but like I feel like a Magic Guard Qian Pao with like Life Orb Magic Guard is outputting enough damage into the hands where it's like not going to consistently be able to beat it, especially if you're like Volt Absorb Prim, you come in on the hands, you take up that electric move and recover, you take the ice moves if it's Refrigerate, you take the fighting moves, and I feel like that's a pretty potent combination. And I think we also just saw what Swave's Thundurus did to this team, and I feel like Nexus's Thundurus can probably do a similar thing. It's not sheer force and it's not quite as strong, but Beads of Ruin still should be quite potent into what this team is doing. Maybe Callum identifies how good that was and goes for the Volt Absorb Vaporeon, but I think either way, Nexus is in pretty good shape with this mon. And on Callum's side, this Ting Lu looks absolutely insane. There's a few ways to get through it, right, with like Primarina or like Chien Pao or Slitherwing. But I feel like Primarina we actually have decent responses into. Slitherwing we probably can have like decent responses into. Maybe not, but like Mence should be able to come in on that a little bit. And I think that can form like a very potent duo while being able to like maintain hazards. I think it's going to be quite easy for this thing to maintain some hazards on Nexus's team, or be like Assault Vest and have like Body Press to Oko Chien Pao, Payback to Oko Azelf. I don't think this thing gets like any flying coverage. It would have been nuts if like Callum decided, you know what, because we have these infinite ability swaps, fuck it, Aerialate, and just like tried to kill Screamtail, or not Screamtail, Slitherwing that way. But Skarmory is still going to be a pain, but I think there's a lot at play here. I also think to shout out Cinderace, another very, very potent Pokemon here, and then of course Iron Hands. Overall, I think there's a lot of good offensive pieces on Callum, so I kind of want to highlight the do-it-all Ting Lu, because I think this Pokemon has the capability to really do it all here. As like a defensive stopgap to everything. I don't know if it'll frag anything, but I think it'll be good enough at being an immediate stopgap where I think Callum has what it takes to win in this matchup. And then our final matchup of the week, Olivia versus Pokeim. And after what this Enam Turtle just did, I don't see it slowing down, right? Pokeim's team kind of weak to fairies with the double dragon core, so it's already going to be needing to work overtime as the fairy type of the team. But then offensively, that fairy plus ground coverage always looks insane, but here especially quite solid. Pokeim does have a few tools into it if you consider the Tinkaton with the levitate ability, but it can obviously get mystical fired. Volcanion, liable to get earth powered. I like an agility set that Liv brought like last week, I think can be good again. I also think Pokemon like Meowscarada are going to force the Tinkaton to be physically defensive and maybe even force it to be Regenerator, which can be really nice for Olivia trying to break the team down with this Enamorus. I think that Great Tusk is going to look absolutely great here now that it's no longer needing to hold on to Thick Fat, and it can be Water Absorb. Maybe Water Absorb doesn't really impact much in this matchup, but like just being that scrappy, it also doesn't impact much this matchup, but I think Great Tusk can be very, very potent here. And then I think that like Meowscarada, obviously really nice in the matchup. Just U-turn into like Heatran seems very annoying for this team. Obviously Heatran's kind of also needing to play an important role into the double dragon core. Even Bastiodon as like another steel type can be very, very important if you're trying to do all of that. Might be liable at letting in Terrakion though. But Great Tusk should be an ample response to Terrakion, at least for the early and mid game. Maybe not late game, it might get worn down, but Meowscarada should always be a fine revenge. And then on Joey's side, I really wanted to shout out Kilowattrel, as it may be surprising, but I feel like you guys know I do not like Raikou whatsoever. I think it's kind of fraudulent Pokemon, and I think Kilowattrel can just like beat it. That's a lie, it cannot beat it, but it can do a lot of damage to the rest of the team. Fastest Pokemon in the matchup, so that's always very, very important to note. And then the stabs outside of Raikou, I know, like, yes, your electric flying stabs outside of the electric type are always going to look good, but especially here, I feel like it is actually able to do enough damage for Olivia, or to Olivia rather. Either it can be Primordial Sea or Serene Grace. I don't think you need C for anything, and I think the Serene Grace can look quite nice into this team. And then other Pokemon on Joey's side, I like Hadron Latios. Obviously, the Pokemon looks absolutely insane. You could consider being Tinted Lens for Tran, but like you have Surf, which hits the Steels. You have Thunderbolt, which hits Enam. You have Jericho, which hits the rest of the team. Like an Agility set could be really good here, I think. Like Agility, Dragon, Electric, Water. Looks like a very, very solid coverage combination. Tinkaton, I think, is going to be a very pivotal Pokemon in how this matchup is played. I don't know if Joey's going to want to take it physically defensive or specially defensive, because it's either going to be decent at checking Turtle or checking Meow. My gut says you take it physically defensive, and guaranteed, like, you stuff Meowscarada, there's like nothing it can do, and you're just kind of trolling it. You can probably be like Bulldoze even to A, maintain speed control, and B, destroy some Heatrans, although it might be like a Levitate Tran. I don't think it like walls Donphan completely, so maybe Levitate Tran is pretty nice for that application. But just being able to knock off items is pretty nice and get up your rocks, do standard Tinkaton stuff, while being able to Regenerator is nice. And then dedicating like Volcanion to that threat of like Enam Turtle seems like it could be a very, very solid plan for Joey. And I think that this could be like a Hydreigon game. I am going to stand on business again. I think that Victory Bell was a one-time use, and I don't see it doing much into this team, like with a Heatran there. Color me crazy if that Victory Bell comes and does like some crazy work, but otherwise, yeah, I just think Joey will rely on his like very strong Pokemon here to take him to a victory. I'll pick Joey in this last pick'em, and yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy this analysis. I certainly enjoyed discussing these matchups with you all, and catch the games tomorrow. Catch me next week. Until next time, Javer out. Peace.